As much as I love the Ben 10 franchise, one thing that has always stuck out to me as a little strange and slightly immersion-breaking is the existence of the Anur system. Hailing from this region of space are aliens who are inspired by real-world monster stories. Werewolves, mummies, not to be confused with mummies, Frankenstein's monster, ghosts, vampires, and if we look at Tom Perkins' unused alien concepts from the classic series, there's also Lagoon, which is confirmed to be an Anur native species, which is clearly inspired by fishmen, and there's also Braindead and Lurk, who are probably Anur aliens inspired by zombies and El Chupacabra respectively. As much as I love all of these aliens, I'll be the first to admit that they've always rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, these things are clearly human folklore creatures, and while it isn't impossible for one or two species resembling human folklore creatures, could exist out there, the fact that there's 5 if you don't include the ones that weren't seen in the shows, each of whom literally has the exact same power set as seen in human folklore, it just feels too far of a stretch for me. Especially Ghost Freak. I mean, Ghost Freak has so many powers, and each of his powers is literally something that ghosts can do in human folklore. So that alone just feels like so much of a stretch that it's practically bordering on Monkey D. Luffy's territory. And I know, these aliens exist because they're cool references to real-world monster stories, but that still doesn't invalidate my feeling that they're just a little too close to home. So that's when I had the idea for this video. What if, in universe, humans didn't come up with these monster ideas? What if those stories were inspired by the Anur aliens? Today, we're going to discuss every piece of evidence towards such a theory, but before we do, please consider subscribing and checking out my other Ben 10 discussion videos. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. It's hero time! First of all, we need to lay out the most basic of evidence. Is the trip from the Anur system to Earth even possible? Yes, there are several pieces of evidence to support the idea that travel from the Anur system to Earth is not only possible, but relatively easy. Firstly, in Alien Force, Vilgax made Ben and the gang go with him to Vilgaxia to fight off the invading Ectoneurites. In this episode, we can clearly see that Ectoneurites are capable of travelling through space, or at the very least that means one Anur species could make it to Earth. They were seen building rocket ships, so this could perhaps mean that they can't go through space on their own for too long, but personally I believe that this is for a different reason. Rockets are obviously faster than an Ectoneurite, and considering how Zascare is pretty impatient as a person, I would imagine that the rockets were built either to speed up the trip to other worlds that he wanted to conquer, or they were made so that he could go and gather his other minions from other worlds before his next invasion, which could be possible considering that we know Ectoneurites rule over pretty much all of the Anur system. But overall, this is really our weakest piece of evidence, so let's move on to the stronger stuff. Time to make the furry fandom happy, because we're going to be talking about LeBoans next. There are actually 2 pieces of evidence that could be provided by our fuzzy friends here. Firstly, the purple lightning. We know that this lightning has teleportation properties, so clearly this can be used to bring in our aliens to Earth, but that's the boring answer. Here's the more interesting one. Thanks to Kai's father, we know that legends exist in Earth folklore about LeBoans, which would pretty concretely confirm that LeBoans have come to Earth at some point in the past. And not only do we know that LeBoans can come to Earth, but we know Transylians can as well, all thanks to Dr. Victor. Be it through the use of the purple lightning, some kind of spaceship, or just some other method that we don't even know about, Transylians can also get to Earth. And considering how most Anur species live in harmony together in their various societies, if a Transylian has the technology to get to Earth, then pretty much any of the other Anur species would as well, I would imagine. More evidence to suggest the idea of Anur aliens coming to Earth and inspiring the creation of human folklore would come from the Thep Kufan, although this particular piece of evidence is purely hypothetical and not actually based on any substance, so feel free to disregard it. We all know that the Egyptian pyramids were built through slave labour, but there's also that age-old conspiracy that the Egyptian pyramids were built by aliens. See where I'm going with this? Considering how physically strong Scenario is, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Thep Kufan did construct the pyramids in the Ben 10 universe. And not only that, but if the Egyptian people began to worship the Thep Kufan, it would make sense that they would invent mummification, as they would want to sort of influence the dead into becoming Thep Kufan in the next life. And it would also explain the tales of living mummies. I mean, that's literally what they are. But what we really have to consider is why would any of these species want to come to Earth in the first place? Well, Vladats would assumedly come here in order to drink human blood, as humans are fairly large creatures who have a fairly decent amount of blood to offer up as a meal. Or, alternatively, perhaps some Transylians came to Earth at some point in the past to escape predation by the Vladats, and told tales to the humans of what the Vladats did to the Transylians, and that led to the creation of folklore vampires. Both are about as likely to be true as one another, I would say. Ectoneurites would obviously want to come to Earth in order to take control of it. I mean, just look at Zascare. But seeing as Earth wasn't taken over by any past Ectoneurite invasions, I'm going to assume the Ghostbusters were there to save the day, luckily enough. As for Thep Kufans and LeBoans, my only real answer would be simple curiosity. After all, humans are utterly fascinated with the idea of travelling to other worlds, which we're even attempting to do right now with Mars. So I don't see why aliens wouldn't want to come to Earth and check it out, especially when they probably know that alien life exists there. And again, it could potentially be to escape from their oppressors, albeit probably ecto-neurite oppressors, seeing as the Vladats were fairly focused on wiping out just the Transylians. Of course, with the tales of werewolves, perhaps LeBoans came to Earth in order to perform hunts, sort of like the Yaoja from the Predator movies. Perhaps they came to fight Earth's mightiest beasts, and thus the legends of men turning into wolf monsters came about. Hell, that aspect of the legend probably started from somebody going missing and then a LeBoan turning up in their clothes later on. Obviously, the LeBoan probably just killed the guy and put his clothes on, but to the average person, is that the assumption you're immediately going to make when you see a humanoid wolf wearing a man's clothes? Probably not. LeBoans could also perhaps have been what inspired the tales of the cynocephaly, dog-headed humans from Africa that, in the real world, are speculated to have been tales fabricated by foreigners who came to Africa and saw baboons. Don't know why they think baboons look like dogs, but I mean, who knows. Similarly, perhaps Transylians inspired the tales of zombies as well. I mean, they look undead enough to pull it off. But now, we come to our biggest piece of evidence to support the idea that Anur aliens came to Earth in the past and inspired human folklore. And it starts with our good man George Washington here. The Ben 10 one, not the real guy. George Washington wasn't spouting tales of alien dog people to his fellow Americans in real life. Though that would be quite the candidate speech. My fellow Americans, alien dog pussy got me acting unwise. Oh my god, what is this video? So we know that in the past, George Washington fought off Maltruan and Vilgax. This serves as a clear historical marker that, at the very least, aliens have been visiting Earth since the time of George Washington. This does mean that if we use this as our absolute baseline, then the whole thing about the Thet-Kufans and the Egyptians probably didn't happen, but that is only when we assume that this was the first alien contact. We have no evidence to support the idea that this is the first sign of human-alien contact, so we can make the assumption that this was simply George Washington's first alien encounter and not the first alien encounter overall. George Washington was the president between the years of 1789 and 1797. So we can assume that this is when alien activity on Earth first began to ramp up, which we see pretty evidently nowadays in the Ben 10 universe of just how many alien species have moved to Earth both before and during the Ben 10 franchise's episodic events. Interestingly, the book that out of universe inspired Frankenstein, also known as the modern Prometheus, which was written by Mary Shelley, was published in 1818. If alien activity first began to spike in the range of 1789 to 1797, then that would mean that in universe it is entirely possible that Ben 10's version of Mary Shelley saw a Transylian come to Earth and then was inspired to write the book Frankenstein, basing the book's monster on the encounter that she had with the alien species sometime before 1818. Hell, the book even promotes the idea of appearances being deceiving and how even monsters can be people. So perhaps the Transylian she met scared her at first but turned out to be a good person, so she wanted to write the book in order to get a nice moral in based on her own experiences. It's perfectly possible given all the evidence provided. But with all of that said, that's about all I have to say with this video. Do you think that the Anur aliens inspired the in-universe human folklore monsters? Leave your own thoughts and theories in the comments below, subscribe if you haven't already, and now, let's move into our usual post-video rituals. So first of all, big shout out to our channel's Thunderbeasts, Riverjoy, Minilmuir, Victor Matusik, and Charscream AA. If you want to help support my channel like these wonderful people, please consider becoming a channel member today and or donating to my PayPal, links in the description. Now let's move into last video's poll, where I asked you guys if you preferred Merc or Perk Gourmands. With 789 total votes, Merc's got 29% and Perk's got 71%. I was honestly expecting these results to be a little bit more even, but fair enough. I'm actually a bigger fan of Mercs, but that's mostly because the UAF era was the one I grew up with most and have the most nostalgia for, hence why UAF Cannonball is my favourite alien of all time specifically. The other ones are good, I just like the UAF one more. So now, let's give a big shout out to everyone who correctly guessed that I prefer the Mercs. Juggernaut the Dark Ultima 6758, Cheems of the Microwave 2929, King Galaxy Skull 666, Vault N95, Kia 5884, Meta Emperor, The Corruptor 985, and Cavendor 5286. Cavendor is my buddy Rubes. He cheated, he already knew the answer to that question. And now, let's give a shout out to everyone who saw last video's secret message, Smash. M. Mangaliso Masinga 432, probably didn't pronounce that right. Some Random Kid, Kia 5884, Dr. Mystery 6264, Gurren Prime, Daniel 88476, Vault N95, and Yamato 9753. Congratulations, everyone. Let's now play 8 smashes. There is another secret message hidden somewhere in this video, so find that in order to get a shout out in my next discussion video, and with that, let's finish things up by moving into this video's poll. This time, a bit of a funky one for our question. If you lived in the world of Plants vs Zombies, would you rather be a plant, a zombie, or a machine? Leave a comment below and or on the poll guessing which one I would most want to be for a chance to get a shout out in my next discussion video. And thank you so much to my buddy Zed for editing this video. Really sorry for all the work. And with that, I'll be seeing you all next time. Adios, fellow heroes.